Hi, I'm Dr. Angela Carswell, author of The Top Shelf Wife and sponsor of the Top Shelf Wives Table. Thank you for joining me today. We're going to be talking about how to shift to a marriage mindset now. Four things that we're going to cover are reciprocity, trust but verify, the butterfly effect, and self care. And I hope you'll get some notes to take and things to try through our discussion today. Let's start with reciprocity. Reciprocity is an idea that we learned in math, elementary school, has to do with fractions. But in this case, we're going to use it to describe the relationship of giving and taking, the circle of life, the yin and the yang, the karma exchange. All of those ideas are based on the idea of reciprocity, the flow of energy as we give and receive. All of us have gifts that we enjoy, things that we've learned, habits that we've taken, different protocols, and ways of moving. And so we want to make sure that the way that we're moving, the way that we're giving is healthy as we begin to receive. And that flow of exchange of energy is called reciprocity. As we give, how does that feel for us? As we receive, are we getting enough? And how does that feel? Does it feel comfortable for us in that exchange of give and take? Reciprocity is the thing that dreams are made of when it's done in a healthy way. We're giving and it feels comfortable, and we're receiving and our cup is full. That reciprocity is the thing that offers the wind beneath our wings as we fly in loving relationships. And we want to be mindful of and observant to make sure that we actually see and look out for our means of reciprocity. The second idea is trust but verify. Trust, the first part. That allows us to offer and extend grace, to basically have goodwill. In real estate, they call it a good faith gesture. It's a period of acceptance without judgment. Are we allowing people to have the space to unfold themselves to us in a way that is comfortable for both of us? So it allows us to go with the flow. Now, that go with the flow can be difficult because it means that we're allowing that person and expecting that person to be and operate in a little bit of control over where we go to eat, what activity we engage in. And sometimes that giving up of control can be unnerving. Um, it makes me remember a couple of months back, there was the Cheesecake Girl. And basically, a gentleman had picked her up and taken her to Cheesecake Factory, and she felt the need to go on whatever live platform she was on and express that she was beneath the Cheesecake Factory and she wasn't going there for the date. Now, as the live recording unfolds, the gentleman basically said that she was an hour late, hadn't offered him anything, hadn't allowed him to come up to her space, which she said was for safety. And he had made plans at a place where they needed reservations, but she wasn't ready. So that had the time had lapsed, and like it was just basically you can see the level of energy and the mismatch of energy between the two of them. And so, to make a long story short, she had basically jumped to the conclusion that she wasn't going to give him any grace to unfold his plan for taking care of her and protecting her, and the Cheesecake Factory just wouldn't do. Now, that particular instance is basically an example of how some people are not allowing and expecting men to show up and give their gifts how they see fit in a safe way, without that passing of judgment. And we want to kind of venture away from that. We want to allow them the space and allow them the grace to and expect for them to care for us, and see how it feels. How does it feel as he drives, picks me up, chooses a place to eat, chooses our activities? Is that a place that I can settle into and feel comfortable? The other part of that is the verify. As we begin to open up our time and our energy, we want to be in a space of verification. From what he says, how do I observe him to be? Okay, as I give my natural gifts and he gives his natural gifts, are they matching up? Okay, so all of these things should be verified: his words, his actions, his character, and his mindset. As he begins to speak and say, hey, I want to take you out, I want to spend time with you, I enjoy doing this, I have plans to be an entrepreneur, whatever it is he says, trust it. And then set about the protective feature of verifying. Does he move in ways that verifies everything that he's saying? And to what degree? Because none of us actually truly operate 100% in our best selves at all times. So to what degree, if he says he wants to be an entrepreneur, I'm going to trust that. And then I'm going to go about verifying. How does he spend his time? Does he budget his money? Is he a creative force in that arena that he wants to be an entrepreneur in? Does he have a self-motivation about himself to where he can pull it off? What is his plan? All of these things are observances, not necessarily always conversations, but there are ways and beings that I'm going to begin to look to verify what he's saying in his life, and therefore, hopefully, maybe in the future, in mine. Trust and verify. Give people that space to unfold to you in a safe way, so that you can see who they really are, not necessarily only what they're saying. First, reciprocity, then trust but verify. The third option to operate in to begin to foster a marriage mindset is the butterfly effect. And that basically is the idea that as a butterfly moves, it's beautiful, it's soft, it's fragile. It's just a little flutter of a wing that gets it going. But that little flutter of a wing, it creates a wave of air. And that wave of air, as it goes in its trajectory, gets bigger and bigger and bigger and has a greater effect. And that butterfly effect is that transition between the small thing that I do and the great impact that it has on others and myself. And so we want to be mindful as we begin to mind shift into marriage and connection, be aware of that. The love and assurance that I give for myself is wonderful. As I am single, I am a wife, I am loving, I am a nurturer, I am helpful, I am a helpmeet. All of those things that I speak into my spirit, all of those things are giving to me. And how do those things affect the trajectory of my spirit in this place going outward? The butterfly effect. What happens if I give to myself, and what happens when I begin to give to others? how does that impact the flow of energy between me and other people? When I show up to a new place, a new restaurant, haven't been there, don't know the people, but do I carry with me an aura of openness to begin to try new foods and to begin to engage in new conversations? As I meet new people, does a smile that I have, does it project outward and begin to impact the flow of energy between me and others? As I begin to exercise my voice and have conversations, how do those land with other people? There's an air of reciprocity because I'm showing up and I'm giving my feminine voice and I'm giving my smiles and energy and presence. How do they receive those gifts that I'm bringing? That can be part of the butterfly effect. How big of a ripple can I make? That's the challenge sometimes for me. And I find it very fun and exhilarating, actually. Can I move in different spaces and actually feel comfortable? As I do that, the range of acceptance that I have widens and my worldview widens. It can be a spirit of adventurousness that I walk through the world with. And that can sometimes impact, and hopefully does impact, kind of your butterfly effect of going into spaces and being a loving presence, being a light presence in these spaces. If I am on the bus, just engaging with people, asking them about their day, commenting about their watch, um, letting them know that, yeah, I'm maybe going here, have a good day. Just engaging in them, not necessarily telling where you're going and why you're going, but just having light conversations with others. The exchange of smiles, sometimes just beginning to be more cognizant of smiling while we're shopping and going to different places about our day. A, a lot of times will have the impact on how people receive us, and the open heartedness that we have projects onto others and they begin to share it unknowingly, obviously, with our friendships. And we begin to break down walls because of the spirit of openness that we're having, the feminine voice that we're having, the words of assurance that we've begin to have within ourselves begins to overflow to other people. That begins to have a great effect on our love life, our loving ourselves, our loving relationships with friends and family. It's hard to be around someone with a lightness of being and it's not contagious. So begin to think about the butterfly effect. What effect do I have in my natural gifts that impact myself as well as others? As I begin to create ripples, you want to make sure that you're not just doing it for, like doing it for the gram, doing it for others. You're also doing it for yourself. And the ripples that I have in my life that allow me to shine and allow people to come into my life that share that same energy and that same connection. You want to make sure that you're still being comfortable and authentic as you try out these new ways of being, the new ways of smiling, engaging, opening yourself to adventure and those sorts of things. How do they feel? Which ones are authentic and which ones can you really get down and be comfortable with? The fourth idea is self-care. I'm a part of some Facebook groups, and one of the ones that I'm in, the moderator of the group posted to the ladies, what are you doing to prepare for a relationship? And automatically, like I'm like leaning into that conversation. Try not to really engage with it because I want to understand. I want to be an active listener in that space and see how women are feeling, how people are feeling. So, with that question, how are you preparing for a relationship? Women began to chime in and they started saying self care. And so for me, my antennas always go up when people say that because I want to understand what that means actively as an action, as a being. What are we being and what are we doing as a moment of self care? So I began to listen, and I, as well as the moderator, started to ask, okay, what does that mean? And so that whole conversation online began to resonate with me. And so I came up with my idea of how self care can actually help to influence us being ready and preparing ourselves for relationship and connection. First of all, self care, seeking out adventures that lighten the spirit can be a form of self care. Okay. So as I um, go on my walk and I'm looking at the flowers and I'm feeling the heat of the sun and the breeze, those complementing things that complement nature naturally, gifts, being quiet and meditating, um, being able to quiet the spirit. If anybody is with other people long, you know that there is an art to being around other people who may be either going through some things or whatever, but being able to quiet my own spirit in meditation can be an action of self care. Singing and dancing. Maybe I'm just singing because I'm happy. But that being able to get to that self happiness alone will also impact my ability when I'm with others to be able to get in that same mindset of self soothing and self care. And I want to make sure that I'm giving space and time to learn for myself what are the actions that I can take that kind of mellow me and ground me in any given space. So those types of things, I feel like, in as um, a small space of self care, being adventurous, it widens my range of what I can accept in adventures in other people and with other people, but it also allows me to ground myself in certain activities that when things are hectic, when I'm with someone else, I can still rely on those strengths that I found out about myself. The second part of self care that I feel prepares people for connection with others is setting boundaries. Yep. Setting boundaries. Even while I'm yet single, setting boundaries in a loving way, not necessarily cutting everyone off. The cancel culture, the I don't have to put up with culture, and all these things. Although boundaries are necessary and boundaries are great, you want to make sure that the boundaries that you set are loving boundaries for self and loving boundaries for the other person. Saying no to things that take too much energy, that take too much of myself, can be a great boundary and a great thing to start as you're single, preparing for connection. And being able to voice lovingly a no. A no doesn't have to be aggressive, it doesn't have to be a wall necessarily. If someone invites me to somewhere and I know that I'm at my wits' end, I've got things going on, da 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 da, being able to say, I would love to be able to join you. I appreciate you offering. Right now, I've got XYZ. Or right now, just mentally isn't a good time for me to prepare to join you in that venture. Those things set up a beautiful boundary. It also promotes connection in the future as opposed to just no. I try to personally avoid just the words no, um, just because they're so final that there's normally a more a softer feminine voice way to say that I appreciate what you're doing, I appreciate what you're offering, and at this time I cannot. But I can maybe do it another time or in another way, or I'll let you know. So setting that boundary and saying those things in a feminine voice, a way that is wise, a way that is loving, but still doesn't move you off your square. Another boundary that we can set are boundaries, financial boundaries. A lot of the self care that I think of and that people seem to express is like spending time at spas and mani pedis. And in my mind, sometimes I'm thinking cha-ching, cha-ching, which if you got it, fine. But a lot of times I also know that we have the expectation of doing these type of self-care activities, and financially they aren't a asset, they're more of a burden. They're more of a liability that I have to maintain this level of appearance more than self-care. So really think about that. Um, is there a way to possibly, if you like, shift some of that to how can I care for me by me? And what I mean by that is, can I just have a spa day at home where I relax and I love on me? I do my nails or I do whatever it is that I do, and I learn how to do that as a means of self care for myself and loving myself. And there's a space for that for sure. The way that we love ourselves oftentimes gets reflected on the way that we love other people. So think about shifting. If this is an area of concern for you, think about shifting to like, can I spend an afternoon just carving out space, valuing the space, the hour that I spend, really loving myself and doing my pedicure or doing my manicure or in my bath and those sorts of things. Self care doesn't necessarily mean selfish. Not being able to make every event based on your time, that is a level of self care and a boundary. And also, one of the things that I've begun to do that you might consider as you begin to set boundaries is boundary of access. While you're single, while you're in organizations, hanging out with friends, listening to friends, watching your shows, and so forth, setting time boundaries that ensure that you have time for yourself. One of the things that I've started to do is to actually use my phone to help with that. At a certain hour, it goes into sleep mode and it gets dim. It doesn't receive phone calls unless you're on a exceptions favorites list. And so I use that to kind of lovingly project I make time for me. And that's important, whether you're alone or preparing to connect with others in dating or marriage. Setting those boundaries with yourself in a loving way and engaging in loving adventures, both of those things yell self care. There's been 4 things that we talked about, and I hope that they have resonated with you. If there are things that you got from this particular episode, drop them in the comments. And as you begin to share and subscribe to this channel, I'm always open to any suggestion of what you would like to hear about what you are finding difficulty with. I can also be found on Instagram and Facebook with familypathways.books, which is the publishing of The Top Shelf Wife. Thank you for joining me, and I pray that this has been helpful for you. Join me next time on the Top Shelf Wives Table.